What's up, Mecha fans, and welcome back to the channel. So a couple of days ago I talked about the original Code Geass Lelouch of the Rebellion series. If you want to go watch that video, I will link it at the end of this video. But today we are talking about its sequel film, which is more so a sequel to the abridged kind of films that came out just before it, and that is Code Geass Lelouch of the Resurrection. But before I get into my thoughts, I want to hear from you guys, so head on down to the comment section below, let me know what you think of this film if you've seen it, and while you're there, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you are a fan of mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. So in case you couldn't already tell by the title, I don't think that Lelouch of the Resurrection should exist. Is that to say that it's some horrible mess of a film? No, I think it is a very enjoyable film for what it is. It's well paced generally, I had a good time with it, I had fun. I am not going to sit here and say that I hated watching this film or I hated every single minute or just wanted to turn it off or anything like that. No, I had a good time watching it. I think it's very fun, I think it's got really good action, and I think the actual story is decent. The problem is that I just don't think the film warrants existing. I'm sure most people that are clicking on this video have either already watched the film or they are fully aware of the ending of the original Code Geass series, where of course Lelouch dies. He essentially is assassinated, but it's more of like a sacrifice for world peace. But the majority of the world don't know that. He takes in all of the world's hate by becoming like this horrible dictator emperor, and then once he's killed, essentially the whole idea is that that hate like dissipates and therefore you just have peace in the world. And ultimately it's like almost like a tragic hero kind of thing where it's a sacrifice but it's also killing off a dictator. It's such a well done ending. So when you revive him immediately, like whatever explanation you could possibly give to that, whatever you do with that, just the whole idea of reviving him after such an important event like that is immediately just like something that you're very unsure on. And I think this film does a decent job at like explaining why he's back. Essentially CC selfishly brings him back to life against his will, and I like the idea of that. If you're gonna revive him, do it where he like doesn't really want to be revived, he doesn't want to be brought back, he wants to, you know, stay dead for the sake of his sins and all that. I think that is maybe the best way you could possibly go about reviving him. Still doesn't change the fact that I just don't think it's necessary to revive him. And even though I quite like the idea of Lelouch being resurrected against his will, when you actually see him in the film, it never really feels like it is against his will. He never seems to be like actively going against it or annoyed at CC for bringing him back to life or anything like that. And I just feel like that should have been there. I felt like it always should have been in the back of his mind, in the background, but there's literally like no like conversation or aspect of that that really tells you that Lelouch is annoyed that he's brought back to life, and I feel like there should have been. Another thing that also really annoys me is the fact that almost everyone seems to be aware of the Zero Requiem. To me, I always saw that as a need-to-know plan, where of course Cece's gonna know about it, Suzuko, who's of course very much involved, and then towards the end, like Nunnally gets kind of wind of it, and there is kind of like hints towards maybe Callan knowing and Ogi, and a couple of characters, but when you get to this film, it seems like almost everyone is aware of this, at least in terms of major characters. And I don't really like that. I feel like it's way more effective if minimal people know the sacrifice that Lelouch made, because everyone else is going to view him as this tyrant, this villain. And I think it's far more effective in kind of portraying Lelouch as a tragic hero if, you know, the majority of people around him kind of see him in this negative light from there on. The thing that frustrates me most about this film is not even about Lelouch and reviving him, it's actually about how they treat Suzuko. His endgame essentially in Lelouch of the Rebellion was that he's dead like to most of the world and takes on the symbol of Zero, and essentially that is his sin. He lives out the rest of his life being this symbol, which is of course like a symbol of like hope and peace and justice and all that kind of stuff, but he doesn't live on as Suzuko. He lives on as this symbol. And they kind of take that away from him in this film, where Lelouch essentially goes back to being Zero for, you know, a large part of this film. Once the film has ended, it's kind of passed back to Suzuko again. But I think the thing that mostly annoys me is the fact that everyone knows that Suzuko is Zero, or at least all the important people, everyone around him, all the kind of named characters that we have from the series. And I thought that the whole purpose behind it was that Suzuko essentially does not exist anymore. He is dead. And his sin is then to just be this symbol. He kind of relinquishes any connections, any personal connections, and he just lives purely as Zero and no longer as Suzuko. But when everybody knows that Zero is Suzaku, he's still able to do everything he would do before. It just doesn't really work for me, and it kind of takes away from like the effectiveness and the tragedy of that character in the end of Lelouch of the Rebellion. With all that negativity and all those frustrations out of the way though, like I said earlier, this is a very enjoyable film. I had a good time with it. It flies by nicely, got good action. It's got really good character moments as well. Even though I said that like there's some character assassination kind of stuff in there, you still get good moments with Suzaku. You still get good moments with Callan. And of course, you get great moments with Lelouch as well. When he essentially comes back from being revived and he does the Lelouch v Britannia commands you, that kind of stuff is hype. It's fan servicey, yes, and a lot of this film, I guess, kind of exists from a perspective of fan service. It's still fun though. I think especially if you watched Lelouch of the Rebellion when it originally came out and then you've essentially waited 10 plus years to see new content, I think you would generally be happy with what you see. So yeah, Lelouch of the Resurrection, it's enjoyable, there's fun to be had in it, but a lot of the frustrations that I have with this film, it's hard to let go of them, and therefore I would say that I'm a little bit more negative on it. So with all that in mind, I'm going to give Code Geass Lelouch of the Resurrection a C. Before I do get out of here, please do leave a like on this video. Also subscribe if you are a fan of mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. And like I said earlier, head on down to the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts on this film. Do you have the same frustrations that I do? Or did you just generally have a good time and you enjoyed it enough to the point where you don't really care about some of those frustrations? Thank you once again for tuning into Mecha Chat today. I'll see you guys next time.